I'd like to call to order the regular meeting agenda on Monday, March 6, 2017. Would you please join Councilmember Pizzillo in the Pledge of Allegiance and stay standing for the invocation?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almighty Father, please provide wisdom to all of us on the dais that we make good decisions for all our citizens and the community at large. Also, please protect and look over all of those men and women in uniform that are serving around the world and even in this state. In thy name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Councilman Pizzillo. And as I look around, we're all here this evening. We'll go to the communications. We have one item. The staff will share details about a new program that focuses on engaging the community and their impact for Goodyear Arts and Culture. Guyleen Oslansky, Arts and Culture Coordinator, to present. Guyleen?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me this evening. Tonight we're going to explore two new programs that we have starting here in 2017. Programs include Creative Aging and Art in the Park. So I want to start first with Creative Aging, and I just wanted to share with you a little bit of information about what Creative Aging is. So Creative Aging is a national movement aimed at understanding the vital relationship between creative expression and the quality of life for older adults. The interesting thing is now that we've started working with organizations and in the aging population, there's a lot of terminology that, you know, it's active adult, it's aging adults, it's seniors, of what that is. But we're using the term active adults, and that is anyone that's 60 and over. And then creative expression will include both performing arts and visual arts for our programming. The Arizona Commission on the Arts selected the Goodyear Arts and Culture Commission to take part in a year-long training program that explores effective creative aging programs and how to implement these programs in our city. Along with the organizational training that the Arizona Commission on the Arts is providing, they're also going to be working collaboratively with the Goodyear Arts and Culture Commission to provide skills development and training for our local artists so that they become teaching artists to be able to offer these programs in the city. The pilot program that we are exploring to begin is the Arts and Culture Commission considered many approaches, because as you are aware that nationally there's a lot of different ways to bring a creative aging program to your city. Through the research that they conducted, they found that 20.8% of our Goodyear residents are over the age of 60, and it really, defined to us that there is a need for this type of program in the city. They also identified three key factors for the type of programming that we'd like to offer in Goodyear. They wanted it to be a community-based program. They also would like to make sure there's intergenerational opportunities within the programming, as well as making sure that it is a lifelong learning class and experience for those that attend. As they worked through this, they decided that an 8-week program would be the best to suit our needs for our pilot program. This program will meet once per week, and we're going to hold it at the Loma Linda Community Center. The program will be free for Goodyear residents 60 and over, and they'll experience both visual and performing arts instruction in this pilot program. And the really cool thing about doing it this way is as we go through this pilot program, we're going to start talking to them, surveying them, and find out from them how best they see a program to suit their needs. Instead of us creating a program and inviting them to come, we really want them to come and share with us what they think would be best for them. And then we'll go further after this 8 weeks and see what they would like to see happen. And the great way of doing it this way is we're going to be able to build that community and essentially become community makers through the process. The next program that we're offering new in 2017 is Art in the Park. And Art in the Park is a monthly experience-based art activity that we will bring to Goodyear Community Park. These art experiences are kind of pop-up arts experiences that will range from performing arts to visual arts. And we're very fortunate that with APS, they offered us a generous grant of $2,500 to be able to offer this program at Goodyear Community Park. We've been able to plan new programming that includes things like Shakespeare in the park, sandcastles in the park, water art in the park, and we're also going to be able to really keep pushing on programs that are existing, such as Chalk Art in the Park and our concert series. Our first Art in the Park program was brought to us by Wham on Wheels, and last month over 80 people got to come work together to create some beautiful ceramic tiles using ink. We had people from 3 years old up to 83 years old creating art that day, and it was really a great experience in the park. The wonderful thing I think about this Art in the Park series is it's not as your typical program where you would have to register, or an event where people that are out there already looking for something to do in the arts comes to you. With doing these pop-up experiences, we make this very accessible, and people that might not have ever tried art at all are going to be able to have an opportunity to come and experience the arts and see that sometimes there's no art experience required. You can still come and enjoy yourself in the arts. So the pilot program for creative aging is going to begin in May and go for 8 weeks, can conclude at the end of June. And our next Art in the Park program will be on March 18th at Goodyear Community Park, and it'll be an interactive Shakespeare in the Park, so that there's a lot of audience participation. In closing, I wanted to just share that finding arts opportunities that engage the diverse population of Goodyear supports a healthy, vibrant community. And Goodyear Arts and Culture Commission will continue to adapt our programs to fit the needs of our residents. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Council, any comments? Councilman Pizzillo?
Just keep up the good work, Eileen.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I am so excited for some of these programs. We did the tiles one other time when you had them there, and it was so much fun just to see everyone. And it wasn't just kids, it was adults and everything. So I think this will be a great addition. So thank you, and thank your commission that's here.
Councilman Stipp?
Yeah, that was the one of the questions I had is, do we have anyone from the Arts and Culture Commission here?
We do, Mayor, Councilmember Stipp. Tonight we have our chairman, Laura Cano, with us. Laura, if you could.
There she is.
All right.
It's the arts and culture is it's been kind of neat, not kind of neat. It has been neat to watch it evolve over the years, and I know I was very excited about and I always have a hard time saying this, chalk art in the park.
It's ridiculous cool.
That was a very unique idea, and I think that came to us through one of the members on the commission when I sat on the board that interviewed folks, and that to me was the start of I think the change in the development of the Arts and Culture Commission. So thanks for your leadership with that, and Laura, thank you for your leadership as the chair and moving this forward.
Thank you.
Anyone on this side?
Make us fun. Thank you.
Councilman Holman?
Look, Eileen, I think once again, with the help of the commission, of course, Laura, but your vision is absolutely exemplary. And you find the resources to make it hang. Thanks for your teamwork, and thank you to the commission. I had the opportunity to sit with them in their retreat on Saturday, and it's a very eclectic group of people that are, I think, serving us very, very well.
Well, I like to see that you're expanding your boundaries, and we're not just trying to figure out art pieces to place in our city. So thank you very much for being open to all these new suggestions, and we look forward to all the new programs you're going to be bringing forward.
Yes, and I had the honor to speak with them on their retreat this weekend. So I encourage them to continue and bring us some great ideas. So thank you. Thank you for all that you do for it. It's really exciting that it's growing. Thank you.
Very much.
All right. Now, we have one communication item tonight, and staff will share details about a new never mind. We've already done that. You can see. All right. Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda item, and I do have one card. Do you have any other cards?
No, Mayor.
All right, so it is Arthur Torrance, and I think you go by Skip. And your agenda items to convert a baseball field to a softball.
Yes.
Please
Good
just
evening,
state
Mayor
your
and
name
council members.
and
Sorry.
your address, please.
Oh, yeah. My name is Skip Torrance. I live in Australia Mountain Ranch at 10943 South Dreamy Drive. I'm here to find out if there's a possibility of changing one of the 3 Little League fields in the Fountain Hills Ballpark up in Australia into a softball field. And if so, how to proceed. I'd like to add one other thing, or a couple other things too, is we have enough teams locally up the hill to have 1 or 2 seasons and plenty of tournaments. We have a very active adult community that would make use of the field on a regular basis, and we're willing to find funding and make changes according to city ordinance if possible.
Very nice. Well, thank you for the presentation, and we will have staff get back to you. I know there's been discussion on it, so. All right, I see our city manager would like to tell.
We'll get back with you so we have your contact information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we really appreciate you coming forth.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Mayor.
All right. Yes, Councilman Stipp.
We didn't give the usual, these are the rules of what we can and cannot say.
all right.
So I think, you
So-
know, he was expecting a response from council.
So let me give you your response. Could you come back up for me, please, Skip?
Sorry, Skip.
Sorry, Skip, I didn't mean to drag you back up.
So the council wants you to know why they were silent, okay? So they can take one of the following. They can respond to a criticism. Yours certainly wasn't a criticism. It was a very constructive suggestion to us. You request the staff investigate and report on the matter, and I think our city manager caught me on that one and said he would. And you can request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. But it looks like we're going to get you the information and report back to you soon. So thank you so
Great.
much.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate you keeping me straight. We're going to go to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please read the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.3 by title only?
Item 6.1, approve the final plat for Las Brisas Phase 2C6, subdividing 28.2 acres into 85 single-family lots and 16 tracks generally located at the northeast corner of 183rd Avenue and Broadway Road, within the Las Brisas planned area development subject to stipulations. Item 6.2, approve the final plat for the replat of parcel 23 of Canamia Phase 2, Track 3, requested by AV Homes to increase the number of lots in parcel 23 from 35 to 38 along South 180th Drive, south of West Wildwood Drive, subject to stipulations. Item 6.3, approve the final plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 55C, subject to stipulations.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Does anyone in the council wish to remove an item for the consent agenda? And then I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Campbell, a second by Councilman Osborne. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loretano,
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne,
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp,
Aye.
Councilmember Homan,
Aye.
Mayor Lord,
Aye.
passes 7-0.
We're going to go down to business and remind council to refrain from asking questions till the staff presentations are complete. And there's a motion on the table. 7.1 on business is to consider approving a job creation agreement with I should have written it down. Huhtamaki. I got it. Huhtamaki. All right. North America, Inc. Michelle Laurie, Economic Development Director, will present.
Mayor, may I ask to convene into an executive session to ask our legal for advice on the negotiations?
Certainly. We heard a motion from Councilman Osborne that she'd like to adjourn into executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. So we will now go into a
roll call vote.
vote, please.
Councilmember Osborne,
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp,
Aye.
Councilmember Homan,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Loretano,
Aye.
Mayor Lord,
Aye.
passes
So now adjourn
7-0.
to exec session. Do I need to do this so she turns off? Going to adjourn the executive meeting and reconvene the business meeting. And now Michelle Laurie, Economic Development Director, will present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am so very proud to be in front of you this evening. And I've got our associate, our friend and business here, Richard Mills, the Senior Director of Operations for Huhtamaki, here with us this evening. And he's here with us as well. So I'm very happy to talk to you about Huhtamaki North America and about the company. Just to start, it's an international food service packaging and retail tableware manufacturing company. Some of the products are there. They're a very big supplier to some of the fast food restaurants like Subway and other organizations that they provide the paper cups for and paper products. The U.S. headquarters is in DeSoto, Kansas. Selecting Goodyear, we were so proud to be selected in a multi-state process with our friends, the Arizona Commerce Authority and the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. In April 2016, Huhtamaki first toured the former Rubbermaid building, what we used to call the Rubbermaid building. The finalist locations were Goodyear and a location in Southern California. In early September, Huhtamaki made its decision to locate in Goodyear. Announcement was publicly made that month, late September. In November of 2016, Huhtamaki purchased the former Rubbermaid facility, and that's on approximately 90 acres located at 4320 South Cotton Lane. That's on the northwest corner of Cotton Lane and MC 85. They will occupy 600,000 square feet of the building. Scholler Albert is also a tenant in the building at 150,000 square feet. And this is just a visual of where it's located there on MC 85 and Cotton Lane, the Scholler Albert logo, as well as Huhtamaki and the proximity to KPS Global, as well as Amazon. So the agreement we're talking about tonight. The agreement provisions are that Huhtamaki would create 250 net new full-time positions, They would provide net new full-time positions with an average salary of at least $42,000, and that those employees would be covered with at least a 65% of a full-time employee healthcare insurance premium. They would invest over $100 million in capital equipment, tenant improvements, and the purchase of the facility. And Goodyear's agreement that's before you tonight would be to waive or reimburse. They have approximately now spent $194,000 on this process. So this would be to waive or reimburse up to a maximum of this process of $565,000 in expedited plan review fees and permit fees. And there are, of course, in the agreements what we call clawbacks or measures that would enable, if the company does not fulfill this, that we would be able to claw back that money. So the economic impact of the project. And that it was done by ESI Corporation. It estimates that Huhtamaki, the economic impact or the total economic output that's indirect and direct will total more than $678 million over the next 6 years. Increased property and sales tax revenues generated, as well as its employees, vendors, and service providers are another benefit to the community. The direct revenue of the city to the city is estimated to be almost $1 million over the next 6 years, 914,357 to be precise. So further economic impact to the city of Goodyear is filling an existing building that has been mostly vacant since 2005. I remember working for the Greater Phoenix Economic Council in those years. We say, when is someone going to come look at this Rubbermaid building? Where are you going to fill this building? Yeah. So I remember being on that end of the thing, the job at that point, and so very proud to see it today. And I can't wait to show you the pictures of the improvements that they've made even thus far. An estimated $12 million will be spent renovating and upgrading one of those older industrial buildings in Goodyear. And here are the pictures. One, there is some of the construction there on the left. The middle is what they've done to the facility thus far, and that's only so far. And I know many of you have toured that facility, and it looks beautiful now. And then is a rendering there on the right of what the front space will look like. So for now, that's what I have, but I'd love to take any discussion and questions. And I also, after done with questions or whenever would be appropriate, Mayor, to have Mr. Mills come up and say a few words.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? You can certainly have him come up at this moment if you'd like. I give permission.
Mayor, it's nice to see you again.
Evening.
Council
Nice to
members,
see you.
thank you for having me. As you can see, Michelle covered pretty much the gambit of what we do for a living. This particular investment, we've over $100 million. I was looking at the project financials just this morning. We've already committed $104 million. I got about $20 more million I have to spend. So we're well on our way to spending the dollars that you've seen presented. I will also tell you that this investment is the largest capital investment that Huhtamaki has in North America this year. Wow. And I think we've spoken before, Mayor, when I was with you in the city, the city manager a few months back. We have many facilities worldwide, and this will happen to be the second largest Huhtamaki facility worldwide. The first, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Again, we'll have up to 250 employees over the next several years, and it's just been a wonderful transition here to the West Valley. Some of you may know that up till 2009, we had a facility over on 44th Avenue, and we closed that facility. It was a plastics facility, so the technology was a little bit different. We moved those assets to our two other plants that we have, one in Coleman, Michigan, and one in New Vienna, Ohio. That being said, we're bringing one of those assets back to Arizona, so which is a great thing. In addition to a whole lot of new capacity, and keep in mind that this capital project is all new capacity. This is not a consolidation of other properties. Arizona's been a great place to locate, as Michelle said. California was another one of the options. We have a plant in the City of Commerce outside of Los Angeles and one in Sacramento, but it wasn't right for us again in California. So we found the right place. We're happy to be here. We're happy to be a part of the community. And I've got to say that this whole process, we closed on the building on the 17th of November. And we actually had a temporary certificate of occupancy issued on the 17th of February. Wow. And the distribution center opened that following Monday on the 20th. We're closing down a distribution center that we have in McCarran. It's the McCarran warehouse, but it's up near Reno. And we're in the process right now of bringing all of that product into the new facility here. So we're starting to fill it up already. The manufacturing portion, which is the larger portion of the jobs, obviously, we will begin to staff the plant third quarter of this year. We've got the renovations will be complete by June 1st. We've got equipment starting to arrive at the end of April, so we are well on our way to filling out a great new facility. But I must say that the whole process has been absolutely, and I'm comparing it to one we did in Ohio. This has been an absolute delight, and I can't thank Michelle and Harry enough for what they've done on the economic development side, but the engineering and permitting folks, the inspectors, everybody has just been so helpful in terms of answering questions, getting plan reviews done, and allowing us to just get this thing done and get ourselves into the manufacturing process here, third quarter of this year. So job well done by all you, and on behalf of Huhtamaki, we thank everybody who's touched it in any way, shape, or form from the city of Goodyear.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right. Will the city clerk please read resolution number 17-1790 by title only, please?
Adopt resolution number 17-1790, approving, authorizing, and directing the city manager to execute a job creation agreement for Huhtamaki North America, Inc., authorizing city staff to take actions consistent with terms of resolution and agreement and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Could I please have a motion, a second?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Vice Mayor Loretana and a second by Councilman Stipp. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stipp.
Michelle, well, let me ask the question first, and then I'll go to the praises. I'm going to just use the term incentives are $565,000. Is that in
Yes,
the plan
that
reviews?
is. That's right.
And we've seen the study which shows 678 million of potential impacts. But what is the real dollars and cents money's coming into the city?
So the real dollars and cents of the money coming into the city, and I have that right here, 1 second. It's about 900, I believe over the 6 years, it's about 916,000.
Yeah.
I
So
can find the exact number.
from a public perspective,
Yes.
there's a literal wash of those monies, and then there's the greater economic impact that we get through the study. So
Yes.
anyone listening to this or picking the story up understands that we're not just banking on a gigantic number of $678 million, but the real dollars are there as well.
Right. That's
So-
the total indirect, direct. So, and that includes jobs, what the vendors buy, everything. So what
Yeah.
goes to the city, thank you, is the 916.
Yeah, so I think that's an important note for everybody to take away from. It is very encouraging to hear that we have been as cooperative as you said. It's been this council's push for a number of years to make sure that we got that way. Everyone uses the phrase "open for business" and all the rest of that, but for us, that is, we need to make that real. And I'm very happy. You're not the first, and you're hopefully not going to be the last. But that's a huge achievement for us as a community, and it's been one of this council's, real strong desires to make sure that we got there. So I appreciate hearing the feedback. I'm sure I'm going to be the first of 7 people to tell you how excited we are that you're in our community, and we're looking forward to a great long future together. Thank you.
Councilman Bazzillo.
There's a lot of questions I had on the analysis, being that's my background. But one of the things I want to make sure everybody's aware of too is the money that you're identifying as the cost of the city really is being absorbed by staff. I don't know if that came out in the presentation. So it's not out-of-pocket money out of the staff, because they're going to use the same staff they have to do the reviews and et cetera. They don't have to go outside to get the additional staff. So I think that's very important. One thing that's very helpful to me in the future from an analysis standpoint, I really appreciate it, is to try to break out, if you can, and this is just for my benefit, the general fund operating revenue as opposed to the one time. You know how I am, a former budget guy. I like to see both those numbers, and they're in there. Your utilities, your primary property tax, some of the other things are in there, but it's just helpful for me if I can see that breakout on the two. Question just for my own benefit, and I think I'm going to direct it to the finance director. Got a question on the personal property tax. And this is for my benefit because, I go a ways back, and I don't remember how the mechanics of it work. Is the personal property tax part of the commercial property tax bill that they get, and that gets disseminated to us just like the levy does, and it's all incorporated in there, the primary and the secondary?
Correct. It's all part of the property tax bill that they get from the county.
Okay, so their primary would be operating revenue, which would basically be ongoing, that's identified in the study. And the secondary would be the debt service or the capacity on that. But that's coming in as one bill, because I never remember how we got that actually disseminated to us, but it's on their actual tax bill itself.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Vice
good.
Mayor.
I just want to say welcome, and thank you for choosing Goodyear. And it's really great to see more manufacturing jobs coming here, because that's one thing we do hear a lot, is that we need more density and we need more jobs, and to become an employment center. And I think it's important for the people to realize, our citizens to realize, that when those people come and work in the, I'm going to butcher this, I got to learn how to say Hukamaki. Did I get it close?
Just go Hukamaki. That'll do it.
Hukamaki plant, and they're going to be, maybe stopping to get gas, stopping at the grocery store, getting lunch, and, so it all builds on each other. And I think this is very important, especially for that area. That plant has You know, we're getting a little life, but now that will really be great. Does this fill this up now?
Yes, it does. That and then Scholler Alibert that has 150,000 square feet. So that fills the building.
So we probably should no longer refer to it as the Rubbermaid
Rubbermaid
building.
building. No, we should. It's the former Rubbermaid building. It's not exciting. It's the Huhtamaki building.
Huhtamaki building.
Okay, so thank you and welcome to Goodyear. Thank you.
Councilman Osborne.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mills, and to your company. You know, we as the guardians of the cash for our city do certainly look at how this all reflects on how we're spending wisely and doing things that is good for our city. And so I appreciate you having patience as we really discuss those things. But I have to tell you, something that you can't always put a price tag to is the fact that you're revitalizing a building in an area that is so very important to our city. And so I applaud you for that. I thank you dearly for that, bringing us jobs, revitalizing it. And the great things that you said about the process that you've been going through as a developer, I'd love for you to continue to, you can tweet that, you can put that out there for us, put it on LinkedIn. I really, would be thankful for you to keep getting that word out to everybody. Thanks a lot.
Councilman Campo?
Welcome to Goodyear. We're so happy that you're here, and we love it that you're joining other companies that make not similar products, but we have the Michael Lewis Company who makes airplane paper products. So we're excited to welcome you to Goodyear, and we're glad you decided to come back to Arizona.
Councilman Holman.
Bill and I always lament the fact that we're either going to be the first or the last, and so much has been said, but truly welcome you to Goodyear. I happen to be from Kansas, and I appreciate that one of their major companies can expand and is worldwide. So welcome to Goodyear.
Well, thank you, Council, for all those great comments. Yes, welcome. We've talked to you before, and I think that we're going to be a great partnership, and you're going to be really good for our community, so thank you. All right, Council, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you very much, Michelle. The next item on business is 7.2, to consider approving a contract for the purchase of 3 fire pumpers in the fiscal year 2017 fleet replacement plan. Charles Schneider, Fleet and Equipment Management Superintendent, will present. Charles?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you very much for having me back tonight to discuss the replacement of 3 of our oldest fire trucks. Tonight, I'm seeking your approval to award a contract to Schmiel Fire Apparatus Company for the replacements of units 381, 382, and 383, valued at $1.788 million. In collaboration with the Goodyear Fire Department and the procurement staff, this vendor was selected through our bid process. Scheduled delivery of the replacements would be approximately 10 months from when we issue a purchase order to the vendor. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Then could I please have a motion a second to award a contract to the Schmiel Fire Apparatus Company for the purchase of 3 fire pumpers as outlined in the FY17 Fleet Replacement Plan in the amount of $1,788,000. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Campbell, a second by Councilman Holman. Open for council discussion. I'm going to go down this side first. Anybody on this side? All right, you got this side. Councilman Pizzillo?
First of all, purchasing these items probably would be a little more difficult if this council didn't have what's called the capital replacement fund, where we work very hard, almost like a reverse depreciation schedule, in which money is set aside each month so we can level off when these purchases come due. So these type of purchases aren't fighting for ongoing operating revenue. So again, this is the result of that, and it made it through the budget process as part of our scheduled replacement. So again, if we didn't have that scheduled replacement fund to look for these future obligations like this, we probably wouldn't be replacing this. So again, That's to me, because you know how this is dear to my head on that heart on that capital replacement fund. So I just have to slip that one in.
No, I thank you for those comments, and I think the rest of us are all very pleased that we have that. Everybody here is shaking their heads. Absolutely. Councilman Stipp?
Back in the early to mid 2000s, the city council declared the Pierce Manufacturing as the sole source manufacturer for our fire apparatus. I'm curious why we are now switching from that council action into other actions with both this purchase and the purchase that we did a couple of years ago to replace other apparatus. I'm kind of confused by the whole process. If council approved and made a mandate of we have a sole source, shouldn't the council have been the one to lift that? And I'm not sure who to answer that question, but talk to me about the fire trucks.
Good evening, Mayor. Paul Louisi, Fire Chief. Councilmember Stipp, back in 2011, 2012, we were presented with an opportunity to purchase 3 fire engines at that time. And it was a decision that was made to go out for an RFP for that, because there were so many vendors within the market that could compete for those fire engines. So at that time, we went out to RFP. We selected the vendor that most suited that spec that we had issued at that time, and it was awarded to a company called KME, and supplied us those three engines at that time. This time, we went out again for an RFP process through a pretty comprehensive process of creating the correct spec, what we felt like for our department now, through Charles and the fire department. And again, went out for RFP. All vendors are obviously allowed to bid for those opportunities, and in this process, Smeal was the one that most suited our spec that we felt we needed. And I know I probably didn't answer your question, but not being here in 2000, that's the history that I remember from the last time we purchased.
Okay, so, you know, the thing that concerns me most is council took an action and made a declaration of a sole source provider for fire apparatus. And they were given a whole list of reasons why a single manufacturer would be better for the department, better for the community. And the council said, yeah, we think that's right. And they approved that. So in theory, here we are now 10 years later, and we're saying all of those things really don't matter anymore. Because what you're going to have are 3 apparatus from one manufacturer, now 3 apparatus from another manufacturer, plus you're going to have reserve apparatus from a third manufacturer. So the issues of consistency and part being able to keep parts and maintenance and all that goes away. Yeah, the compatibility, the whole issue. So I think for me, this is a twofold issue. Number one, if council took an action and made a declaration, shouldn't council have undone that at some point? And that's probably not an answer or a question for you. But secondarily, how are we addressing that now? If it was such a critical issue back then, how is it not a critical issue now? And I guess I would look back and say, did we have a problem with Pierce manufactured trucks that we needed to go out for bid? And when we did, how did that work out? Because now we're not using that same manufacturer again, because we've got a different, so we're either constantly changing our spec or we're going to have these issues. And I think we found during one of our last publicly bid processes that sometimes our specifications are such that we have difficulty getting a vendor to actually meet what we're looking for. So I don't know who can answer who undoes the council action that was taken. Does council, and we probably should have asked this question back in 2011 when we first went through it. So,
Mayor and Council, I can probably attempt to answer that. And I think here's what happened. Subsequent to 2000, we updated our procurement code, and I believe that was probably 2007, 2008, in that range. We adopted a complete new procurement code in 2008. And in the procurement code, now we vest the the determination of sole source and alternative procurement methods with the city procurement manager. So I would, my opinion would be that since you as a council adopted that procurement code, you delegated that authority. You delegated that authority to your procurement manager. So subsequent to that procurement code being adopted in 2008, the procurement manager in 2011 made a decision to let it out for bid. And that was within the procurement manager's authority. So legally, I think that's probably how it came to be. Now, the second question I can't answer for you. That's a business decision on whether or not it's meeting specs and whether or not we want to set standards and whether those standards would render it a sole source. But that mechanically, I think that's how we got to the decision through the procurement process.
That's good background. I appreciate that. I think obviously at this point, we've done a certain amount of work, and we're too far down the rabbit hole. That seems to be the phrase of the night. So I'm not suggesting that we pull it or don't take the action. I'm just concerned that all the things and all the reasons that it was so important for us to have a consistent fleet. I mean, we do it with our police cars, for crying out loud. We've got the same Tahoe for just about everybody, and every one of those vehicles every one of the sedans is being replaced with a Tahoe. They're all Chevrolet products. And we're not going to have that with our most expensive fleet pieces out here. And so I just question for the future, I guess, where do we want to go with this?
Any other comments? Councilman, Vice Mayor, she did ask for, sorry.
I just have a question. Obviously, we're getting 3 new ones. So where, because the public's going to want to know that, what do our old 3, where do they go? Do we sell them? And if so, does the money go back into the fleet replacement fund or?
Yes, ma'am. They'll go to our surplus auction, and that money will come back to the general fund.
Does it go to the general, or should it go back into the replacement fund? Just to the general fund?
To my knowledge, it's the general fund.
Okay. Okay. And I understand Councilman Stipp's concern, but obviously they weren't the lowest bid. And so, I guess that is also the flip side to sole source is if they know you're their sole source, then you're going to pay more in many cases. So that would be the other concern. So unless there's a problem that we need to re-examine this, at this point, I'm okay with moving forward on these.
And ma'am, for this specific bid process, the vendor in question didn't submit a bid.
Oh, so they didn't even submit?
No, ma'am.
That's interesting. Councilman Osborne?
Well, I think my questions have been answered. I do totally understand the question about, especially when it comes to parts. And I remember when the new fleet building was being built, and they were showing us just all of the parts that had to be stored for all the different vehicles. And so it does make sense, you sit there talking about, oh, I have a Ford, a Chevy, and I have some Japanese vehicle. It all, you're having to find space for everything. And so I understand that, having a consistent type of source. But I think that you've pretty much answered, and especially by saying the other company didn't even bother to, bid for it. Well, that tells you something right there. But in the future, I guess that's just something that we would always want to think about is the parts. And I would have to imagine, you guys probably don't deal with it, but I would have to imagine that your fleet department does, put out that kind of thought and gives that input to when you make those decisions on things.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I thought so. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Yes, Councilman Comdo.
Chief Luigi, I'm assuming that if you did not like this particular vendor, you would have spoken up if you thought this vendor could not provide what we needed?
Yes, ma'am. We picked the vendor that most met the spec for us.
All right. And so we can assume that getting these 3 new apparatus from a different company, you're going to be happy with that. You'll be able to use that.
Yes.
Okay. This reminds me kind of the F-35. I thought Boeing should have had the contract, and they gave it to Lockheed Martin. So I think sometimes you just write your specs, and the company that's able to fill it is the one that ends up getting it. We don't necessarily go with the cheapest bid, do we? Or do we? We don't.
No, ma'am. We go with the lowest responsible bidder. And in this case, we had 5 bids, and we started with the lowest and did our due diligence and went through all 150 pages of that vendor's proposal, myself in collaboration with the fire department, and we wrote a document that says meet, do not meet, and then submitted that document back to procurement, and it was vetted through that channel. And they said, hey, Charles, you have enough information here to move on to vendor number 2. And we subsequently did vendor number 2, and we ended up with vendor number 3. So the homework and the work's been put in to ensure that my customer gets the right product.
Okay.
And this is the hard part, but the real hard part is when our team goes to the vendor for the pre-construction conference and goes line by line and spends a week with their engineers making sure that everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Okay, that's good to know. So my comment now to the city manager. I wasn't on council in 2002, and I never heard that we would do sole source companies to do business with. So I'm assuming that does anyone keep a list of things that previous councils do when all of us are new and we don't know what they've passed and not passed? I mean, is somebody going to keep us from getting in trouble when we don't know about it? And Bill, I'm assuming you knew about it because you were a member of the fire department. I mean, otherwise, yeah, we wouldn't have known. So, I mean, not that it makes, I mean, I'd like to know if we voted on something and we're not supposed to do it differently. It would be nice to know. So do you keep a list, Mr. City Manager, or our city attorney or somebody?
Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, we do look back in history when we're looking at new staff reports that go to council. In this particular case, I'm not aware of what the history was when Pierce was selected. I was here in a different capacity at that time, so I don't know if, short of us looking back at what that action was, I cannot answer that tonight. But we do look historically as far as previous policy direction from council, and that is typically included in our staff reports.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm happy that we were able to get a vendor that could build to our specs, number one, and that the price was not too bad. I mean, it's a lot of money to me, but fire engines and fire apparatus cost a lot of money because it's so customized. And I can only imagine what Pierce might have charged us. And since they didn't even bid for it, then I'm glad we were able to find someone to take care of it for us. So thank you. And Chief, thank you and all of your staff involved in getting the specs together and figuring out what we need and how it's going to serve us.
And Charles, I want to compliment you on that wrap-up. That was well done.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
You answered some of their questions, and it was succinct, and I appreciate that. All right, Council, this discussion is finished. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. On to 7.3, to consider the preliminary plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 48. Here we go, Wally.
Yeah.
Katie Wilkin, Planning Manager, will present.
More rooftops.
We keep rolling.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'll switch. I see this color exhibit isn't showing up very well on the Elmo, but hopefully between this and the preliminary plat, it'll explain where we are. The item before you is a preliminary plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 48. It is located just west of the clubhouse in Pebble Creek Phase 2. And you can see on this map, here's the clubhouse area over here. And outlined in red is the limits of the Unit 48 area.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
It encompasses just under 47 acres and will include 130 single-family lots, and so that's a density of about 2.78 dwelling units per acre. The lot sizes range from about 6,600 square feet to 14,000 square feet in size. The plat also includes 11 tracks, which will be used for private streets, drainage, and open space areas, and it is planned that the HOA will own and maintain all of those areas. Access is provided to the site in 3 points. On the south here, it connects to West Clubhouse Drive. It also connects to North 164th Avenue, and you can see up at the top it connects to Monterey Way. Fire Station 185 is located at the entrance to Pebble Creek Phase 2 and is located about 1.2 miles away from this site. Water and sewer is provided by Liberty Utilities. At their February 22nd meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered this item. There were no speakers, and it was recommended that City Council approve it by a 5-0 vote. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Katie. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Would the city clerk please? Let's change our page here. But could I have a? Oh, I'm sorry. Could I have a motion, a second, to approve the preliminary plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 48, subject to stipulations? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Heard a motion for Councilman Stipp and a second by Councilman Osborne. I'm really doing well here. Open for council discussion.
Yay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, what? I have a comment. Yes, Councilman Holman.
This is just a general comment, and that is the developers who have the duty to the developers that have the duty to inform potential clients about the noise in the area from the various. I think there are 3 different entities that are potentially a source of noise. In all fairness to potential customers, I think that notice should be very visible, and that it should not come as a surprise or just passed over lightly when they go to closing and sign all of the papers, because I think that it's a very serious obligation, and this has been in those contracts for a very long time, I know, but I visited a couple of the offices and the notices were not very clearly identified. They were there. I'm not denying that they weren't there, but they were kind of, you had to know what you were looking for to find them. And I think that's a very important part of our obligation to potential people who are moving into those areas.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? All right, council, we're going to vote on this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We're down to the information. Council have any comments, accommodation, reports on current events? Councilman Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, a couple things, wanted to let the council aware that we have a very active pickleball group. And not only does Pebble Creek have a very active group, so does Canamia, but so does another large amount of players that don't have specific pickleball courts. And I just want to let you all know that they're wanting some change.
So are we getting rid
since
of
our man
is
came,
this getting rid of the tennis courts now?
Since our gentleman came to talk about softball and baseball, I thought, I ought to tell you that I'm also hearing from the pickleball community. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The other thing was that, and Mayor, maybe you were going to speak about it.
Oh,
but
I'm going to let you do that.
Oh, thank you. We attended, the Mayor and I attended a great rollout, I guess you would say, from ASU. Dr. Crow and George Will was there to speak, and it's for their...
Lily Crystal sat next to me.
Yeah, yes, it was, but they're having a new school with ASU that is the School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership, and it was... oh my goodness, it was quite astounding to be there and to listen to everything that they're proposing. And I think it's something that we should, as a state, be very proud of, that will be coming to our university. So if you want to add to
I
that.
just
it
want
was
to add
really
to
cool.
it that really it'll be an education how to be involved also in the political world.
Sure.
So it really educates them with a tremendous background, and I think that, you know, we all see weaknesses in that area, and this is going to be a great major. So I was really excited about it. So, Vice Mayor?
I just want to, everyone's been waiting for the trampoline place to open up, and it's a hit as far as I can tell.
It's just terrific.
I wasn't allowed to actually go inside because I dropped the 14-year-old boy off at the time, so it was uncool to be with your mom. So, you know, I had to look in the windows. So you laugh, you just wait. But I did want to ask, it looks great. It looks wonderful. There's a lot of the streetlights are dark, are out going up, I think it's 135th or something. Since there are a lot of kids being dropped off there, if we could just check on those and just make sure those are up, because it's a great amenity and it's just going to be wonderful.
I'll just add to that. I actually went over and we actually had a ribbon and did a ribbon cutting.
Did you bounce?
No, I did not bounce. But there's a jousting one that I'll challenge you to, that you kind of walk on one hand and you have the big, and you know.
There you go.
I would love to hit a couple of you. Just,
oh, you're opening up.
Yeah,
something,
so I'll put a challenge out on that.
That could be our team building.
Yeah. Well, there's you know, nice foam rubber that you fall into, so it's not like I'm going to get hurt or anything like that, but it would get your aggressions out, you know.
Okay, sure.
But it was, I have to tell you, for families, it is a great opportunity to take the children, and it's not dangerous. You know, I don't want people to think you're going to bounce and hit a ceiling, because you don't by the type of material they've used. They have a nice little vendor there where they do hot dogs and things like that. So it's going to be really a great attribute to our city. So I called Joe. I sent Joe a text. I can't right away. He said, you need to take your grandkids there, and he said he'd already been there. So if you haven't seen it, go over and look at it. It's just terrific. Any comments, Bill?
I'm not quite sure how to respond to the. I'd like to take a few of you out.
You're not going to challenge. It's from the challenge, huh?
I think when we had the presentation from the judge back in either late December or early January, he too advocated for a certain form of vigilantism. So I'm not quite sure where we're headed.
Are you comparing me to that, please?
So I think I need to have some police protection on the way out. Anyway, I had the opportunity this week to sit down with Dr. Runyon at the Agua Fria Union High School District regarding the start of their public process for a boundary realignment. Now that High School 5 is coming up, and it will, the first draft has a potential impact on the city of Goodyear. We were contacted by a resident, and I spent a great deal of time communicating with that particular resident, and then had a meeting with Dr. Runyon. It was really productive. I think the reason that it was as productive as it was is I'm going to start with Council Member Osborne's building blocks for education program that you started a number of years ago. That started the relationships, and then the staff has picked up, and we've continued to develop those, that allows a council member to pick up the phone and talk to the superintendent, or go to his office. And what I had intended to be a 30-minute conversation, I was there about an hour. It was real good. Thanks to Jessica for helping me, take notes and get a letter out to our resident, who ended up being very, very happy with that. The important thing, I think, the takeaway, if we run into anything, is they're just now starting the public process. And this is for the change that will take place in the fall of 18. So we're pretty far away from that moment. And Dr. Runyon wanted to get it done sooner rather than later. And he's being very methodical about it, which I think is a benefit to us as homeowners in the area. We all pay into the high school district. So to know that the district is doing something that we don't hear very often, and that's keep the kids in mind first. I thought that was pretty refreshing, because most of what we hear coming out of the State House is not that. So, but it's important. Jessica's got the dates if anyone's interested in the dates of those public meetings. He encourages the public process. Matter of fact, I think the first one is tonight. I can't say enough about the relationship building that we've done with the schools.
And what did you find out about the academic performance?
Thanks. It was, when you're, my son just graduated a year ago, so you kind of live in a bubble, and you don't really pay attention to any of the other schools, but the one that your kid goes to. So I knew that Millennium was an A-rated school.
Can you tell the public what that means?
No, I really can't.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you had
Other
that
than it's
discussion.
the top rated,
I put you on the spot.
of the
didn't I?
ratings. Yeah. Again, I live in a cocoon when it comes to my kids and what school they go to. As long as he was going to the good one, I was more worried about my son rather than my bigger role as a council member. But our Freya High School is also an A school, which I did not know because, again, I put myself in a cocoon. So I think that was, for me, that was a big learning part. And it was, so I think getting out and understanding where all of your schools are, especially if you live in those areas that are subject to border changes. I live right down the street from Millennium, so there's another layer of my cocoon. I never had to worry about it. So it was great. So I think my takeaway from that whole thing, and the reason I've rambled on, is just we bring the schools up and we listen to things, and sometimes we ask ourselves why, because we don't have anything to do with the schools, but this is a big reason why. And now we've got some residents who knew that they could reach out to council and that we'd do something. And I won't, at the end of the day, I will have changed nothing, because it is ultimately the school districts and their elected officials' responsibility to be responsive to their people. But Dr. Runyon understood the concerns of our resident, and he was able to inform me of some things that I didn't know, so it was real productive.
I really appreciate that you took the time to do that, and council benefited because the information, Jessica sent it to all of us. So I think it gave us a real strong sense of being able to respond to people when they ask these questions. Mm-hmm. And an A is an A. And I think they're smart to do the A because, you see, back in the days that I went to school, that's what you strove for. That you wanted to strive for that A. And so I don't think you can misrepresent that. It means that the students are learning and they're teaching the subjects that they need to be taught. So our schools get a bad rap, but remember, it's in our area. It's not throughout. So we need to be rated on Goodyear and Avondale and Buckeye and our school district, and not the entire state. And so I tell Laura, Michelle. Right, here we go, Michelle, how important it is, and that's why they did a page on that they hand out about our schools, because we do have some good schools. So thank you, Michelle. So anyway, any more discussion from here? Boy, I'm having trouble tonight. City manager? Oh,
I do.
Oh,
I was waiting till everybody talked.
Oh,
I just
all right.
wanted to tell everyone that Mayor Lord and Councilmember Holman and Councilmember Pizzillo and I went to Goddard School for Dr. Seuss's birthday. And it was wonderful. The Cat in the Hat was there. Fang 1 and Fang 2 were there, as well as Dr. Seuss, who was 113 years old. And he looked wonderful. But the mayor read the foot book, and it was wonderful. The kids loved her and loved doing it, and we just had a great time. And I'm sorry that all the schools in Goodyear did not issue the invitation to us to come and read, because we would have gone every day of the week to read to the kids, because that's what we love to do the most. But we had a great time, and we appreciate Goddard School for reaching out to us.
I thought maybe it was because sometimes I have my foot in my mouth.
No, you did really well, Mayor. It was really fun.
So they chose that book for me.
Those kids loved you. Yeah.
All right. All right, City Manager, you're on.
And how are the green eggs and ham?
Oh, we didn't get the green eggs and ham.
Okay.
No, we got the foot book.
Mayor, Council, I have two follow-up items. One is Skip Torrance, the resident from Estrella, and I noticed that our Parks and Rec director walked out with him, and they were already starting the dialogue as far as the request for softball fields, so we are following up. Second item is street lights near Elevate Trampoline Center. We'll look at that and see if those are ours. If they're not, we'll work with the developer to see what's going on there. Those are my two follow-ups.
Great. Is there any staff summary follow-up? Any you asked tonight? Did anybody? Councilman Osborne.
So, Brian, it's interesting the conversation that happened this evening, where Councilmember Stipp brought up something that he remembered from the past of process and going through, the protocol with the fire engines. And then Councilmember Campbell brought up, are there any other things like that previous councils had done that, we don't know anymore, or we haven't followed up on things? And one kind of occurred to me as we were sitting there talking about it, and I was thinking, and that was years ago. I want to say maybe in my first or second year on the council, we passed a NLC platform that we adopted on youth, family, and education. And we've probably spoken about it twice or something, because I probably brought it up, over the years. And I realized that, things like that, if we don't stay up on, I don't know where they go. And so I just wondered if there's other things, just to Councilmember Campbell's point, do we stop and look sometimes at historical things like that we've done that we seem to just let kind of go away? And so, I wondered what the process was on that, because this was an actual, item that we have, platform that we took as a city. And so then we never go back and look at those things. And especially as people change, you're my third city manager since I've been on this council. How would you necessarily have known that previous, councils had taken some of those actions? So, it's almost like, do we have a city historian? That's
we used to.
We used to,
and so that's what I kind of, I guess I pose that as
not
that we're pushing that
a question or a dilemma that I just wonder about how that works. So you probably don't have an answer for that tonight, and I understand if you don't.
Mayor, Councilmember Osborne, I do not have an answer for that. I on the NLC platform, not sure where that was, if that was a one-year resolution or if that was ongoing. We'd have to look at the history for that. And we do have a fairly newer director team. We do look at history as far as COACs that have been done that are related. COACs, for the audience, those are our staff reports to council. So we do endeavor to do that, but there are going to be things that are brought up tonight that we need to also look at. So we'll look at the NLC and go from there. And I do appreciate the attorney being next to me that also talked about the procurement change, which did allow us to go a different direction with the trucks.
All right, Council, does anybody have any items you want for future agendas?
Oh, no. But can I say one thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I don't want to get the last say, but I just have to compliment our ballpark staff and the wonderful spring training games that we're having. And the volunteers are just number one. They're just wonderful people. And everyone that goes has left our ballpark really enjoying themselves and knowing that Goodyear appreciates them coming. And Councilmember Osborne and I visited the CTCA Hope team when they brought their Cancer Treatment Centers of America patients to the ballpark. And we had a wonderful afternoon with them, and they were so happy to see us, and they expressed how much they appreciate the city of Goodyear. And I just, Nathan, please thank Bruce and all of his staff and all of your staff, because I know for March, no one does anything but spring train. So thank you so very much. We're just happy it's so successful.
Wally, thank you for bringing that up. I think everybody is unanimous in that.
It's
so
great, yeah.
The next meeting will be a work session on March 20th. So this meeting is adjourned. No further business.